Yes, yes, people. What's going on? Welcome back to Saeed TV, and we are live for the debate show, Saturday debate show, 8 p.m. Little later than usual. Apologies for the lateness, but we are here for the debate show, and we have got a lot to discuss, man. In with me today, we got a man like Staffy in the building. Staffy, how are you, man? Everything good?
Good bro, good bro. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, man, not too bad, man. Not too bad, bro. I can't lie to you. It's been a good day. It's been drama in the Bundesliga, drama in the playoffs, man. It's been a good day, man. Good day of football. Weather's nice in the UK. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, not too bad. Neeks, good to have you back on the channel. Hope you're well, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again. Bless up, everyone in the chat. Make sure you like the video. Season's coming to the end, but Man United is enough to be happy about amid everything that's going on. So I'm
Yeah,
still smiling. I'm still smiling.
absolutely, absolutely, man. We got Sunny in the building. Sunny, man, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. The weather is absolutely stupendous, in the words of Chris Eubank Senior. So everyone's just soaking it all in the UK. And listen, we still have one big game to go, obviously, in the season. So it's going to be a bit of a party
Yeah,
atmosphere, hopefully, tomorrow at Old Trafford.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Osman, man, good to see you back as well, man. How you been doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Pleasure to be back, man. Just to echo Nick's sentiment, make sure you slap a like and obviously subscribe to the channel, people. Listen, it's going to be a good show, man. Top 4 settings, you love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, we finish third as well, man. Tomorrow, that would be amazing as well, man. But listen, we got to talk about the style of play, man. Have we misunderstood Ten Hag's style of play? That's coming from a place of, obviously, this week we've been linked with Mason Mount. We've been linked heavily with him, Declan Rice as well. Let's start with you, Staffy. Um, in your opinion, what do you think Ten Hag's style of play is? Like, if you were to kind of describe it for you, like for the people as well, what would you say style of play was?
You know, Said, there's no one answer to this, and I'll tell you why. I think we can all agree here that we've seen us play differently at home than away. Away, we're used to like giving up the ball a little bit more, trying to stay closer to, playing a deeper line closer to the goalkeeper, staying compact, hitting more people on the transition. Whereas home, I've seen us express ourselves a little bit more at home, having a little bit more of the ball possession wise, playing more at the halfway line. There's a lot of games where you at home where you see Varane and Lindelof like playing at the halfway line, trying to control the ball as much as they can. What was the game before the Chelsea one that we played at home? Sorry, it wasn't even at home. It was Bournemouth, and the one before it,
Yeah.
I kind of saw a little bit more of that style of play. Whereas Chelsea was a weird one. I kind of like was confused why, especially in that first half, we gave up the ball a lot more. It wasn't more giving up the ball. It was more Chelsea technically took the ball from us. They were commanding that midfield a little bit more. So I feel like Ten Hag's style is what we see at home, which is he's trying to keep the ball, and without the ball, there's a structure. Everyone has to be in a certain position and trying to press. There's a lot of times where we pressed high up the pitch. Depends on who we're playing. Obviously, like when you exclude City, Arsenal, and Brighton, because these are the best teams on the ball, we couldn't really enforce the way we want to play against them. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no one answer. Next season, I'm leaning still towards that. Ten Hag wants to play the same way he played in Ajax, where he keeps the ball, and without the ball, he's pressing high, trying to win the ball high up the pitch, because we've done it a few times. But yet again, when you see us, we're linked to the likes of Mason Mount, that kind of throws me off because he's not a player who's good on the ball. So I'm like, is that a real thing? Is Ten Hag actually asking for Mount? Or is that a PR move from like Mount's people or Chelsea to get his price up? There's a lot of answers we're looking for.
Neat, where do you see it in terms of, obviously, this comment here said we still surrender possession a lot. How do you see the level of football Ten Hag's playing, and do you think it's going to be, do you reckon it'll improve next season in terms of, because I prefer possession based, but again, that transition has worked for him in terms of home games. We've been deadly, in terms of scoring goals, in terms of, being defensively our shape. What would you view it differently to what maybe Staffy said there?
The thing is, what I'll say is, because when people say possession based, and not just me yourself, but in general, when discussions are had, people always look at Pep Guardiola as maybe the utopia, but also like the only way you can have a possession-based team. Liverpool are a possession-based team. They've been a possession-based team under Klopp since he's been there, especially after once his first summer came, because obviously he joined in October 2015. Yet their midfield was always functional rather than creative. That's why now Henderson and obviously Fabinho, who is a good passer there himself. So, but Liverpool still keep 60% possession. They still keep a high line, one of the highest in the league. And they still, obviously, with their pressing, they box people in. But they're much more direct in when the opportunity arises, they can go from back to front very quickly, or they can just fire balls in down the channels for their wide men. Obviously, we're going back a year or so. We're talking about Salah and Mane. So possession based doesn't mean tiki-taka. It doesn't. It means we were a possession based team under Sir Alex Ferguson. We weren't Barcelona, but we dominated the ball, dominated the territory, and obviously they therefore dominated the matches. I can't see, from what I've seen from Ten Hag this season, he is very adaptable in terms of the players that he's got at his disposal, and therefore what is the best way to get the result, as opposed to someone like an LVG who was a slave to his philosophy, and of course that served very well throughout his career. At Man United, maybe not so, but he was a slave to his philosophy to ultimately to his own demise, his own detriment, that he finished outside the top four and was sacked in 2016. I would much rather, from what we've seen with Ten Hag, yes, I got a style to implement, which we've seen him try to do at different stages of the season, including right at the beginning, but also understanding the limitations and the attributes of the players at his disposal, knowing that, especially at Manchester United, results is the most important thing. De Zerbi can go to Brighton, who already play a certain style of play, and play his way regardless of results, because as long as you don't get relegated, you're probably going to keep your job next year.
I don't think De Zerbi could do that in this team, though. I don't think he could do that.
No. What I'm saying is he can. There's no pressure on him to get results week in, week out, because he's managing Brighton. Arteta took over Arsenal at a point where they were so low they couldn't really, in terms of a fan base, they couldn't really get any lower. And even though they did get so low, they still kept his job. If Ten Hag was a slave to his philosophy and we finished 8th and 5th, we will be calling for his head in his first season, and rightfully so. But the results, it's a results business. And Ten Hag, I'll tell you what Ten Hag's philosophy is. It's results, because he's managing Manchester United. And of course, he has a preferred way of playing. And I think what we saw in the first summer in terms of the players that he targeted, not necessarily the ones that he got, and what we will see going forward once the ownership is sorted out and we get the players, I think we're going to see him go closer to how he was playing at Ajax, but never at the cost of results. He's not going to ask Bruno, Mount, for argument's sake, and Casemiro to do peak Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta, knowing that it's going to end up as a 4-0 slapping away to Brentford.
So what we're trying to say then, and I come to you, Osman, is that he has to compensate, maybe his style of football to the way the Premier League is. It is fiery, it's fast paced. You can't afford to drop points, especially in this top four race when it's now extended as well. Especially this season with Brighton and Aston Villa coming in and whatnot, Newcastle emerging. Do you want that from a manager? Do you want him to kind of understand the league, but then obviously compromise his, his football philosophy maybe?
I mean, firstly, Neeks, you are absolutely spot on with everything you said. I just want to throw that out there firstly. But look, in terms of what Ten Hag has to do, at the end of the day, he has to assess, the tools he's got, so to speak. I mean, look, some of the players that we got are capable. Like Martinez, for me, is absolutely fantastic. Progressive football. I mean, his ability to pass through the lines and obviously start attacks, the first phase, so to speak. You haven't got many players like that within the team. I mean, the fact that Martinez has come in and has such a huge impact, not just defensively, but offensively as well. You saw with Arsenal as well, and I'm sure we were sick to death of them talking about Saliba. But the truth of the matter is, Saliba is extremely influential in the way Arteta wants to build attacks, and Martinez has been that for us. But the fact of the matter is, Martinez is far and few between. There's not many players in the squad that are capable of doing what Martinez does. Eriksen, for me, is one of the few that is capable, but Eriksen lacks in other areas that Ten Hag would want from his midfielder, i.e. he's not mobile. There's a reason why we were being linked so heavily to Frankie de Jong. Granted, he's rejected us every opportunity he's got, but there's a reason why he wanted Frankie de Jong. He's basically Eriksen, but has the mobility, has the ability to drift past players, has the ability to carry the ball as well. And we don't have those kind of players that will allow us to be successful in a Ten Hag system. I mean, the biggest example is, and to be fair, I have been somewhat bitter when Liverpool fans have brought this up, but the truth of the matter is we play one of the deepest lines in the league. I think we're like 17th or 18th within the 20 teams in the league. And a lot of that is down to the fact that, you know, we don't have a sweeper keeper. I mean, you can say what you want about De Gea. Obviously, it's not just about De Gea. We don't have a sweeper keeper. But on top of that, if you are going to play a high line, there's two things that you need for a high line to be successful. The first thing being a keeper that sweeps. And the second thing is a front three that actually defends from the front. You can't play a high line and allow the opposition with the ball, because essentially they'll just keep clipping the ball in behind and you're going to be struggling. And they're the two factors that are, well, there's quite a few factors, but they're the two major factors that doesn't really allow us to see the benefits of what a Ten Hag system looks like. For me, look, we need three key players. Striker, without a shadow of a doubt, I think we'd all agree with that. Centre mid, who's actually competent on the ball. Our ball retention, in particular in the Chelsea game, was absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This is a Chelsea team that's coached by Frank Lampard. We gotta call a spade a spade. You know, it was a great game for the neutral. I'm sure most people enjoyed it. It could have been 5-5 at half time. But as a Manchester United fan, and if I'm analysing that game, that was an absolute shit show from that midfield three. Casemiro, I feel for the guy,
we need to talk about that, man, because you know what? There's a reason why I bought Casemiro, because I tell you what, man, he's the only one that does defensive duties in that midfield.
Bro, he's doing two man's work. And look, I understand Bruno Fernandes does a great deal of work defensively. However, offensively on the ball, you know, I've been praising Bruno Fernandes a lot recently because he's actually refined his game and he's played a bit more of a mature game of late, playing deeper, you know, controlling the game, pulling the strings. The last two games, that's gone out the window. We've seen the Bruno Fernandes that I'm personally not a fan of. He has not been composed on the ball on numerous occasions. You know, him and Eriksen, both of them, they've just been losing the ball sloppily. And that kind of transcends through the entirety of this team. You see them, you know, cheaply passing the ball away. Then you see Anthony, Sancho, etc., etc. And that's my biggest issue. I mean, like I said, there's many different facets. I'm sure we're going to delve into it. But the main ones for me is the high line, the lack of ball retention, and the lack of press. I mean, essentially, that's all three. But without the players, Ten Hag can't implement any of what he's trying to do. The positives are, in transition, we've definitely looked far better within the first two phases. The third phase, I'm sure we'd all agree, we've been absolutely shambolic in the final third throughout the entirety of this season in terms of clinicalness and decision-making. But I think defensive third and the middle of the park, we've actually moved the ball fairly quickly and with purpose. But yeah, we just need to improve on too many different facets for Ten Hag to actually implement his style. And just before you bring Sani in, the last thing I want to add is that he's literally had no time on the training pitch. People can say he's been here for a year, but you can't really count it as a year because we've had a game every 2 days. I mean,
I heard that.
To implement anything that he's wanting to do. I mean, you mentioned De Zerbi there, who's been absolutely fantastic and deserves his flowers, but he's had 7 days or 5 or 6 days preparation week in, week out, and people will say this is an excuse, but the truth of the matter is, and I think Rio Ferdinand might have said it, I can't remember who said it, one of these ex-pro Man United players, they said essentially when you're playing every 3 days, you basically just do recovery training, and that's it. You don't do anything else. You don't learn anything else in terms of like tactically, so to speak. So I definitely think that's been a detriment. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in pre-season, and hopefully tries to implement a bit more. But there's definitely been improvements, but we need the right personnel moving forward.
Yeah, HK Music says here, big up, says until we get rid of or bench Bruno, David Hay, Aaron Bissaka, Rashford, we will struggle to keep the ball. I mean, HK, before we talk about the deficiencies in the squad, what's your assessment on the style and whether you think it's conducive to next season in terms of sustainability? You know, where's your kind of feeling on the way we play right now?
I mean, let's be honest with you. Right now, we're a counter-attacking team. We don't really control a lot of games. Away from home, we have literally been playing on the counter, hoping for moments. And it's funny because we had a manager before this as well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and a lot of the times we used to give him a lot of, discredit, saying we're just a moments team. And this season, it's Erik ten Hag's first, so you can't really get onto the man. However, we have become a team relying on moments. And, like Usman said, like Neek said, like Staffy have said, we need the right personnel. We need the right people there in order for us to implement the style of play that we're looking for. I mean, I know Neek's referred to the Ajax side that Erik ten Hag managed, but some of the players that he had in that system were perfect for how he wanted. People might give Tagliafico a lot of stick, but the way he used to bomb up for Ajax all the time was helpful for them. Right now, do we have a fullback that supports our wingers going forward? Not really. I know people, talk about Rashford's season this year, but a lot of the time it's him delivering a moment for us. It's not really him having someone like Luke Shaw bombing on the overlap for us. Likewise, on the other side, save Sancho has been playing on that side, Anthony. Although Dalot, people, credit him going forward. Has he really been providing that much of an attacking impetus? I don't personally think so. So that's obviously one aspect. Next season, listen, we're going to be in the Champions League. There's a hell of a lot more games and competition will be increased. It's not like the Europa League where we might go to Astra Gugu, for example, or Alphabet FC, like the West Ham fan said in the Conference League. We're playing some proper high quality opposition, which means we need to learn how to control games, especially at home. Because like Usman said, that Chelsea game, for me, I was there as well, like you guys. The way Enzo, and I might butcher this name, I don't work at Slaughterhouse, but Chukwuemeka, like I said, I apologize if I've got his name wrong. They control the game beautifully, I thought. Chukwuemeka was gliding across the pitch. Enzo Fernandez, the way he was beating our press, half turn, amazing. I thought, like I said, the fact that Chelsea have somehow managed to get Enzo Fernandez is amazing because he is a fantastic player. I wish we had someone like him at our club. But big summer ahead. Let's see what happens. Hopefully, we get the right personnel in, and hopefully this season coming up, Ten Hag can slowly implement what he wants. But when you hear in the news him talking about De Gea staying at the club and potentially still keeping his first team place, it doesn't bode well for the style of play that Ten Hag wants to play. So it's one of them ones. It's a catch-22 right now because obviously we need to get rid of some players. Some players need to come in. But if he's serious about his style of play, then he has to make some uncomfortable decisions, which although he might think, exactly like I said, that's the thing, isn't it?
Can I just say something quickly? I think the fact that you mentioned Enzo and Chukwuemeka, and unless people are going to say that Lampard is a better coach than Ten Hag, it goes to show how important personnel is. It goes to show that important it is. Because really, I was just saying this, Lampard who has made Enzo into the player that he is, which we all know isn't. It's about him having the ability to take the ball off the back line on the half turn and start a play where we don't have midfielders who are really it's not their facet in their game. And I think there was no surprise for me in the summer when he went for Martinez, Frankie de Jong, and Anthony, players that either he'd worked with in the last season and or had already played in the teams and therefore the styles of play that he wanted. Because as Usman said, the amount of games that or training on the training pitch that we're actually able to do, tactical work that we would have been actually able to do, Ten Hag would have known that would have been limited, especially with the World Cup in the middle of the season. So he knew that the best way for me to try and get obviously results and also implementing the style of play is to just get players who already know it, as opposed to having to teach 11, 25 players a whole new way of playing. And again, there was a comment that came in the live chat. Would we have rather sacrificed the results for the style of play? Would we? I mean, based on the season that we had.
No. There's an argument to say you could do both. There's an argument to say you could do both, but I get it. For the first season.
Saeed, show me the example. Show me the example of the manager or the club who has
done. That's what I'm saying. No, you can't. It's going to be impossible. That's what I'm saying. Perspective for the first season, get the top 3, Champions League football, possibly 2 trophies. I think it's an amazing, amazing season. The only thing is, I'm just kind of tired of transition football. Like, I want to see us dominate games. That's the only way. I want to see us get a first phase player. Like, I'm desperate for De Jong. This is my worry for me, people, is that, next season when we do, when I've seen the likes of Mount getting linked with us, I'm just like, damn, man, give me that first phase. Casemiro isn't that guy. Mount won't be that guy. Bruno's not that guy. I just want to see the first phase of play, us being able to kind of have a plan.
I do think Bruno can be that guy, man. I know it's not a popular opinion within the United fan base, but
I think that's young. Tell me why.
He's done it for Sporting, bro. Like, people keep forgetting the guy was basically playing in the 8 for Sporting. He was playing extremely deep for Sporting. For Portugal, most of his career for Portugal, he's essentially played deeper. Apart from recently, he's actually got his cam spot. But look, for me, I think he's more than capable of doing that. Like, at the end of the day, like, your people, look, the skill set that he's got. The only issue with Bruno Fernandes is his mindset. I mean, he, like I said, in the last 2 games, he's just gone back to all Bruno Fernandes. But he's got the work rate, he's got the ability to string the passes, he's got the ability to control the tempo, but he just chooses not to do it. A lot of the time, he wants to do that Hollywood pass, he wants to get that killer ball. I saw an interview with Sky Sports that Bruno Fernandes did not so long ago, and basically the presenter essentially asked him, do you never get, deterred when you don't get through a ball? He said, look, I'll do it 10 times. I know that 1 out of 10 times, if it goes through, Rashford's through on goal and we've got a chance to score, I don't care if it doesn't go through 9 times. Essentially, I respect his bravery, because obviously a lot of people, could lose confidence if it's not coming off of them. I respect that, but at the same time,
I think they're detriment to the team, though. It's not good,
I genuinely think he's capable of playing in a deeper role, simplifying his game. Like I said, I've seen him do it at Sporting Lisbon before he came to United, and he was brilliant. And he's done it for Portugal as well, and he's done a good job for them. Obviously he's played with João Matinho and other players that are obviously sensational footballers, but I think he's capable. I'm not saying he's the answer. I do prefer if we get someone else in that position.
Yeah.
But hypothetically speaking, if you've got someone else that can play where Bruno plays, who for me is better in the final third, i.e. is more, is more consistently getting the through ball off, so to speak, I wouldn't mind seeing Bruno, sacrifice his game, so to speak, to complement someone, allow someone else to play further forward.
Listen, bro, I couldn't agree with you more. This is the first time I ever do a show with you, so I've never heard your opinion before. But I've been singing this song for a while, and you're the first one I met that actually said the same thing. Whereas my issue with Bruno is not his technical ability. I know he can play it that way, but he chooses not to. Yes, and this is something that's drilled in by the manager. I feel like he's been playing the style that Ole wanted for 3 years. And if you think of it, most of these times we were always losing games. We weren't winning a lot in these 3 years with Ole. So this guy's so used to always playing like that quick pace football where you're always trying to catch up, where you're tying or you're losing, you're down 1 and you need a goal. He just plays the pace of his game. It just pisses me off at times, because at times it's unnecessary. And you mentioned his days in Sporting. You don't even have to do that. If anyone here is curious, go watch the first game where he debuted. If you guys don't remember, he debuted in January versus Wolves. One time I did that. I was like, you know what? Yeah, he played against Wolves. I was like, I want to go back and watch the highlights of the game. And because I just remember how good that game was. I was like, I want to see if I was just overhyping him because it was his debut or not. This guy was dropping deep every time to get the ball. He was just a conductor, getting the ball and spreading it. That's all he did, bro. There was barely any long passes that game. All these Hollywood balls, there was none of it. And I think that game we tied or whatever, but the result isn't what I'm talking about. When you look at the way he played, I honestly got gassed. I was like, you know what? We got our new Paul Scholes now, someone who I trust in the midfield is going to get the ball and move it around. God. Bro, listen, bro, Scholes is my favorite. He's my GOAT. He's my favorite player of all time. So, I'm seeing that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm seeing Scholes reincarnated. But then he just gave up that game after a while, and I'm like, but why? Why do you have to play that way? It just what aggravates me is like there's times we're controlling the pace of the game, and you see there's no outlet. We have the ball on the right side, left side, whatever it is. Someone's parking the bus in front of it. There's no right pass. Let's recycle the ball and go again. When you look at Bruno, he looks at it and he's like, he either wants to take a shot or he's looking for someone to cross to right away. And I'm like, sometimes you don't have to do that because it's still early in the game. If we are winning, we're good. I get it if it's last 10 minutes and we need a goal and everyone's inside. Okay, so whatever. But just control the game better.
Why can't we just get specialists?
Because he can do it. He can do it, Saeed. That's the thing.
He can do it, and then we're experimenting. Why don't you just go and get a Caicedo?
Give us a specialist and give me a specialist that is realistic that we can sign. Apart from Frankie
Caicedo, Ugarte. I can name a name.
Ugarte is going to PSG. To be fair,
hold on a minute. That's almost allowing him to go to Chelsea or PSG. If we actually make a move, that could be possible. The problem is we're not making that move, and obviously Ten Hag has different intentions. Yeah. He doesn't want to play this way, and you know what? I'm okay with that if it works. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a risky game not having someone who's in that first phase, just to kind of make sure we've got the ball. When you got David Hay in the back as well, you're creating more anxiety. If he's keeping David Hay and then doing the transition ball, bro, we're gonna get counter-attacked after counter-attack. That's the way I'm kind of looking at it. That I don't see it in the long run. Especially this Premier League. Not saying it's working, but it's going to be very, very tight. It's going to be tight, man. And that's the only concern I have about it. People say
you've also got another player as well, like Polina, for example. We're playing Fulham on Sunday, for example, tomorrow. And in the FA Cup game, you ran the show, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was class.
Underrated player at Fulham. And let's be honest with you,
I rate him so much, bro. I rate him so much.
He's not going to stay at Fulham for that long.
27.
How old is he? I swear he's like touching that.
Sonny, you might have to come in and out, Sonny. You might have to come in and out. Your internet's bugging. Come in and out, Sonny. Okay. I'm going to read the super chat, CEO.
Yeah.
If everybody watching, by the way, there's over 600 in here. Make sure you're liking the video, people. And make sure you're subscribing to the guys' channels. HKN says Casemiro is the only is in the midfield alone. Eriksen has no legs and Bruno has legs but can't defend. We need two midfielders to play next to Casemiro. And he says again here, Bruno can't do what y'all are saying. The Premier League is not the Portuguese league. Bruno does not have the tech ability to keep the ball while being pressed. We've been in the mud for so long, so we see Bruno.
I don't agree with that at all, bro.
He can, bro. He can.
He's definitely press resistant, man. He is press resistant. I think that's a bit harsh on Bruno. But
I think he's a final phase player. I think he's a final phase player. I think that's where
he's
very
good at final phase. But like, to be fair, if we get Casado, then I would agree with you, Saeed. I just don't.
Even with Portugal,
I don't see it happening for us personally.
Even with Portugal's side, he doesn't play that high. People think he plays that high up the pitch. He really
plays
doesn't.
Deeper. Yeah, he plays deeper.
In Portugal, he plays deeper, and he plays very well with Portugal. But you know what it is? That midfield in Portugal is more balanced. They have the way they recover the ball is much better than us. If we had a midfield that recovers the ball like City does or Liverpool does, we really wouldn't be complaining that much. Because he plays very similar to like De Bruyne's. When you look at his numbers, his chance creations, they're very similar to De Bruyne. The only reason you don't notice De Bruyne's flaws like that is because they're very quick at recovering the ball. Whereas we lose the ball and then you see someone running at Eriksen and you're like, oh my God, why do we have Eriksen in the midfield? He's going to get ran over. And that just shows you how imbalanced that midfield is.
Yeah. Big up HK says, if Ten Hag is not able to build his squad and get rid of the old players, including the favourites, Bruno, Shaw, Rashford, De Gea, who will fall. And Kevin Gimenez says, have to understand that all of a sudden we have Kane, Mount, Rice links. It could be needing homegrown quarter two, probably trying to get the best he can. But the thing is, like, Rice, I think is a quality player. I think he could suit most teams, and I don't think anybody could complain about that. It's just a Mount one for me, man. Like,
this is it with that super chat. Kane is quality.
Quality.
Homegrown or no homegrown, Kane is a player we should be going for. Rice,
absolutely.
But for the price, and I understand the market we're in, so you have to look at what's the other options. But Rice is a quality player who would not look out of place at Man United or any other top six side. Mount does not and should not get into the starting 11 of any club. I think finally, Mount strengthens the squad of, I would say, 5 out of the top 6, or 6 out of 7 if you include Newcastle. Maybe even gets into Newcastle's 11 potentially. But he should never, ever be starting. The fact that he can't even start for this Chelsea side, and it's not a case of, injuries or we had a contract issue. He was starting this season and he was poor. Mount is very good tactically. That he will do exactly what the manager wants him to do, or at least he will try and understand what the manager wants him to do. But he doesn't have the technical ability to execute on a consistent basis exactly what the manager wants in a role that he's playing. Because remember, he's been playing in this 2-10s behind a striker. He's been playing in the 10 for Southgate. They've even tried to drop him deep. He's playing off the left. Technically, in open play especially, I think he's got decent corners, but technically in open play, he is not good enough to be effectively a creative midfielder, whether it be advanced or deeper. But tactically, I think is why managers like him so much, because if you tell him to stick to your man on the left, he's going to do that. If you tell him to press, he's going to do that. If you tell him to drop, he's never going to leave his position as a player. But then when you get on the ball, and especially if we're going to look him to dominate possession, he's going to be on the ball a lot. What are you going to do with it? And I just don't think he's got the quality to do that. So
we need good technical players, bro. That's what we need right now. We do like a lot of
targeting that, though. Staffy, we're not. This the thing is, okay, we don't know the transfer target yet.
But that's what I was going to say. How can you say that because of the loose, not the loose, but the links to Mount, who's also out of contract? True, I think we are targeting.
I'm trying to be hopeful. Neeks, I'm trying to be hopeful here. I generally, for me, I'm praying Ten Hag gets a technical player.
In the summer, we know Frankie de Jong was his first choice, even ahead of a Casemiro.
Absolutely. Categorically, yes.
We know he was also in for Rabiot. People look at Rabiot and think, oh, he's a big, tall guy, physical.
He's technical. He's technical. Yeah.
He's a technical player. Even if you look at Manchester City have men on their pitch. Doesn't mean they're not technical. Just because you're going for big guys who are strong and can run, it doesn't mean they can't be technical. So I think there's enough evidence for me, regardless of let's put aside this season alone, because how can one season define a manager? There's enough evidence with Ten Hag where he's managed before, and in the players that we know were his first choice. The way he talks about someone like a Martial, despite him being injured all the time, you know the types of players that he actually likes. Why are we not playing in the way that we know that he actually wants to play? You have to put it down to the personnel. And I don't think a link to Mount should just completely change the way that
let me ask you a question then. What's more key for Ten Hag? Is it taking people out or bringing people in as well? Like, what would you say is more greater for his philosophy?
I think that's to be bringing people in. I think that's to be bringing people in.
But then again, De Gea, you've got the situation with the midfield as well. You know what I mean? Strikers as well, in terms of who he wants and who he doesn't want. I get it, bringing people in, but then there's also the De Gea situation. You can't then say you're going to do all of this stuff, and then but then again, maybe it shows you that what he's trying to do is transition, so he can keep De Gea. So everyone that's complaining about De Gea, then maybe he can keep De Gea under the new way of playing, right? Or am I wrong? Is anyone gonna?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both, because let's be fair. I'm not trying to compare, but you're going to have to compare when it comes to this. When Pep Guardiola came into Manchester City, remember how everyone spoke about Joe Hart for a couple of seasons at Manchester City, how good he was. They had to take him out. Who did they bring in? Claudio Bravo. Then they had to look at players like Di Michelis, for example. They had to take him out. Then they had to bring in the likes of Otamendi. Mangala was still at the club before Pep came.
Mangala and Sani and Clichy.
But the thing is, though, Sani, that's creating a team where they keep the ball, though. But if you're not keeping the ball, and you don't need David Hay to keep the ball, I'm not saying it's like I said to you, it doesn't stop. Stopping the ball in the back of the net, shot stopping. Yeah, he can do it. He can do it. Obviously, the other things that he can't do. So that's why maybe the manager's thinking, you know what, I might not need to sell him then. And we're all.
I don't think he will. I don't think he did. I don't think we should sell him though. That's the thing. I don't think we should sell him, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't sign a keeper, if that makes sense.
Correct.
Because
100%.
At the end of the day, whether people like to hear it or not, De Gea still has value to this club. You can't just get rid of a keeper like that, who, fine, he isn't the best with his feet. We know that. Although you were talking about shot stopping, for the last couple of seasons, his shot stopping and goals prevented has actually been negative, which obviously isn't a good thing for us. But he still has value. Plus, if you're bringing in a keeper, let's be honest, Claudio Bravo, when he came into Manchester City first season, I think you guys can remember, he stunk the place out.
It was horrible.
He was so bad. He was so bad. Then they brought in Edison. So there's no guarantee that if we bring a keeper in, that he's going to perform. Obviously, you have to give the keeper time. So why would you get rid of De Gea? I just don't. People who think De Gea should go, I think, are being very, very knee-jerk. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't sign a keeper, if that makes sense.
I think there's enough evidence, even with David De Gea, there's enough evidence to show for me how Ten Hag wants to play. Because if Ten Hag didn't want to play this possession football, we wouldn't be talking about David De Gea's lack of ability in passing out or super keeping. Because we wouldn't be playing in a way that has been exposing those deficiencies. And the fact that those deficiencies are being exposed shows that Ten Hag is playing in a way that exposes those deficiencies. Therefore, the possession, high line, etc. Look at Dalot and AWB. At the start of the season, Dalot was playing most games. And it came to a point where it was like, damn, AW might need to come back in. Not because Dalot wasn't fitting the style of play, but he just was not playing well enough, especially after the World Cup. But Ten Hag stuck with it so much to the point that obviously he's going to get a new contract. That shows that even despite the poor performances or AWB showing that he's actually playing at a better level at this moment, Ten Hag was willing, even in the cup final, to keep going back to Dalot because of that style of play. But as I said, what is more important, or what was more important this season? Results or philosophy? I just think judging him based on everything that's happened this season and purely saying, well, look how we're playing, look at the stats, I think it's not looking at the nuances as to how we got to where we ended up this season.
Yeah. Dillian Saka says, big up to you guys. I think Eric Ten Hag is compact and counter-attack. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll play on the front foot, attractive style like City or Brighton anytime soon. It just comes down to preference as well. If we win like this, it's amazing next season and we keep going. But as soon as it starts to kind of, the results start to turn, I don't know. That's where I think the fans get a bit frustrated. But again, it just comes down to the quality that he's allowed to bring in. You know, I mean, if you've got these quality players, Usman, you can pretty much play most styles if you want to. You know, what I mean, if you've got players that are adaptable to certain, like Bernardo Silva can play left back, he can play. You know, we have to have players that are multifaceted as well. Like the thing is, if you bring Mount in, he can only play a certain position. If you bring in certain other personnel, he can only play certain ways. If you bring in players that can play different positions and are so, you know, like adaptable in other areas, bro, you're laughing, man. You're absolutely laughing.
Saeed, in the beginning. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I look, at the end of the day, look, first things first, right? When we're signing players, it's important that we don't sign names. I mean, I went on MUTV this time last year, and they asked me basically, you know, who should Man United sign? And I remember, like, before the show, they're basically bigging up Dybala, he was linked to Man United, etc. And I basically said on the show, we should sign Jurien Timber. That was the name I said. This is before Martinez was even linked to Man United. I said we should sign Jurien Timber. The reason for it is because he's not a big name, but he will suit the way Ten Hag wants to build from the back. And I think I stand by that sentiment. It's important that we get the right players to suit the system, not players like Mason Mount per se. I mean, people may rate him, people may not rate him. Is, you know, neither here or there. The reason I don't want Man point blank is because how does he suit a Ten Hag system? He doesn't suit what I would associate with the Ten Hag system anyways. I know a lot of people have been confused, me included. You know, being linked to Mount basically gives me red flags. Essentially, he's almost like scrapping his system to an extent because it doesn't really make sense for us to sign a Mason Mount because where does he actually fit into how he wants to play football? So for me, regardless of who the player is, the most important thing is that player can implement his style of football and obviously run with that. I think that's the most important for me, regardless of the name. I think Caicedo is a great shout that Saeed you mentioned there. I think he would actually be the perfect player. I mean, he's brilliant in the first phase. You saw when we played when they beat us 1-0, obviously McAllister getting the winner. Caicedo was absolutely sensational. I mean, they beat the press every single time. On numerous occasions, Caicedo was actually getting pressed by 2 or 3 players, and he was beating it with ease and finding a pass, and we don't have that at the moment. And I think that, for me, is one of the bigger issues. I mean, a lot of people can criticize Ten Hag. You know, we haven't played this flashy football. The gentleman that just put the super chat in saying that he doesn't feel, you know, we'll, you know, play a certain brand of football under Ten Hag. I personally disagree, and the reason being is if you actually look at his signings and the impact that those signings have had, let's look at Martinez and let's look at Casemiro in particular. I think them two have probably been the most influential players. If you actually go back to last season and take Casemiro and Martinez out and actually look at how we were and then put them into that team, it's night and day. The development of the team is absolutely ridiculous. That's by only signing 2 players. Okay, accumulated 100 million. Okay, granted, people may say that's a lot of money, but the point being is 2 players that come into the first team can make all the difference if they're the right 2 players to implement the style of football that the manager wants to do. Martinez does that to an absolute T. Casemiro, to a different reason, he gives us that, you know, tenacity and grit and steel in the middle of the park that we definitely did not have. You bring in another 2 players. Let's just say, I know this is not going to happen, but in a hypothetical world, actually it could happen. Let's just say Caicedo and Harry Kane, hypothetically, the only 2 players we signed. We've now got Caicedo, Bruno, and Casemiro in the middle of the 3. That is a brilliantly balanced midfield. You got the destroyer, you got the player that's capable of, who's fantastic in the first phase, and then you got Bruno Fernandes, who's brilliant in the third phase, as we'd all probably agree. And then you got Harry Kane, who's a bona fide 20-plus, you know, goal striker. That will elevate the team automatically, and that will allow us to play a great football automatically. I mean, just by adding that quality, but also players that implement the style. So it's about adding quality, but it's about adding the right quality as well. And I think that's why people are getting misconstrued. Dybala is a baller, not denying that, but I don't want Dybala because he doesn't really suit what we're trying to do at United. He's just an example of a player that we always link with. But yeah, for me personally, I don't agree. I actually think with 3 first-team players away, similar to Martinez's impact, and well, 5 obviously to win the title.
I think 5,
look, 5 possibly, yeah, granted. But I'm saying if we find another 3 players that have Martinez and Casemiro's impact, then obviously we'll be in the
Oh,
title.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying
Absolutely.
we'll win it. I think I would agree with you and say 5 to win it. But to be in the conversation, to be competitive, I think we're only 3 players away. Obviously, of that ilk, but it's hard to obviously find those kind of players. But yeah, for me personally, I don't think we're as far as people say, but we have to buy the right profile player.
I think we're far away. I genuinely think we're far away, man. I'm serious. Like, I'm
I
not
think
just saying
from winning
to,
it, yeah, but to be competitive,
I think
don't
even
we
being
have one.
competitive, man. I think even being competitive. I mean, you're looking at the likes of Manchester City, obviously this year, but even Arsenal. I know people are going to go on to Arsenal about how they bottled it, etc. And fine, we can say they have, as much as their fans probably don't like to say that word. But I think we're so far off. They played us off the park, to be honest with you, in the Arsenal game. I know it was 2-2, and then Ketty scored at the end, but we were literally again a moment's team. And if we're being, even if we come and sign 3 players, I'd love if I was proven wrong and what was been saying comes to fruition. But I genuinely think we are a long way off even competing, to be honest. That's why I think we need to give the manager time. Like, I think even next season, I think we need to just keep it consistent in terms of getting the results. Have somewhat of an idea of what kind of style of play we're going to play. And I think this summer is going to prove what style we're going to play, because whoever he brings in will give the best idea of what he does. If he brings in a Mount, then it's not going to be a possession style. If he brings in a player of the profile, then fine, possession it is. But I still think, man, we're such a long way away. Just our squad just isn't good enough, in my opinion. We're carrying a bit of passengers, need a bit of a clear out. But let's see, man. Like, I hope Usman makes me a believer next season.
So can I just throw this out? Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Yeah, well, hypothetically, yeah, obviously we're only speaking hypothetically, because we signed Kane, we signed Casado, and we signed, I don't know, Magnan, the goalkeeper. Is he AC Milan, right? Or someone of that ilk. I mean, he would be the dream for me personally. But anyways, hypothetically speaking, if we signed 3 players of that ilk, I don't look, and then you De Gea's on the bench. I don't think he'll run save or whatever. Then you got Eriksen on the bench, and then you got Martial on the bench. Our squad doesn't look that bad. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to win. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying we definitely will be competitive, and I think we'll see a
Eriksen has to be, for me, like a rotational player. You know, when you got rotational. For me, I don't know. For me, I'm not gonna lie to you. Starting games anymore next season, I'd be worried, man. I like Eriksen. But for me, if he's starting games next season, best believe I'm worried. But the thing is, you know what's worrying me, like, about Eriksen is that Ten Hag knows his deficiencies, but he plays every game. Like, he genuinely
because who is he when you play? Because when he plays Fred down,
you change the dynamics completely, Saeed, when you take him out and you bring in Fred. Let's assume Fred is your next one off the bench, because
that's what I'm saying. Get an upgrade. We need an upgrade on Eriksen. So if we're saying we don't need
Eriksen needs to be on the
first base player,
no, but I'm explaining why he insists with him every game. He's the thing. The way Eriksen plays. Yes, I understand he's over 30 now and his best days are behind him, but this is the player that Ten Hag wants in that spot. So him being persistent with it shows me that he wants an upgrade on him, because if not, he would have started Fred every game. Fred is going to start arguably in the FA Cup final, but that doesn't mean that he's the regular starter for us. So if anything, that just shows me that this is the style that he's trying to play, and he's staying persistent with it no matter what, because he wants the team to get used to that's how we're going to play football. In that position, we're going to have someone who controls the game more than someone who just runs around and destroys the ball. And if anything, that's an indicator to me that, like, hopefully we would go out in the summer and get someone like a De Jong, even though he doesn't want to come to us, but like we would get someone of his profile. Whereas Eriksen, I see him next season, he just gives me Mata vibes in his last days, where like he was good on the bench. You bring him on for 20 minutes in the game. Mata was more like the guy, like, where we couldn't break up defense down, you would bring him on, and you have an extra body in that midfield that is more on the creative side, trying to break down these deep lines. But playing 90 minutes, I agree with you. It's just like, it's really not for him anymore, especially at the pace that the Premier League is being played right now. He has too many deficiencies to be playing game in, game out. He's a rotational player. He'll play cup games, maybe the odd start, but definitely he should be our number one option coming in next season.
HK Music says we are 7 starters away from winning the league. Martinez, Varane, Casemiro, and Anthony are the only starters that should be kept. The rest need to leave or go bench. And we need to upgrade from Bruno, not just Eriksen, who's been one season, has upgraded our midfield a lot. I just think it comes down to even we're not even talking about Casemiro's backup as well. Like you man, realize Casemiro needs a break as well. Because he's overplayed as well. There was large parts of the season where we could have said, you know what, you take a little break now. We're going to bring on I don't know who can play in that position of whoever's in. You know what I mean? Like
that man got sent off twice. He had enough breaks, man.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah,
say,
no.
Technically,
no,
Fred
no.
should have been the
No.
replacement.
No, I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying. He's not
It
getting
kills
it done.
momentum though. Kills rhythm when
No, it
when
does.
his red cards.
And I think, but that's why I think Declan Rice isn't a bad signing at all, because he can both play a 6 and an 8. So, but that's why we need 2 midfielders. We need 2 midfielders in the summer that are more than capable of starting. Whether or not both of them come in and start immediately, definitely one of them needs to. But
you keep it Sabitzer. You keep it Sabitzer.
I have no interest in.
Is anybody keeping Sabitzer, by the way?
No.
Yeah. Anybody in the chat keeping Sabitzer? Anybody in the chat?
Now, Becky was on the other hand. No, I'm joking.
No, you know, but if you told me about Sabitzer after the Sevilla game, I wanted to keep him. But then again, when I started to see the injuries coming and the fact that he just wasn't like it just wasn't like testing Bruno enough. Like the manager's got a mind in his head that he wants Bruno, he wants this system, and he's only better going forward in terms of the final phase of play. He's not great in the 8. He's not great in the 10. The 6. He is just literally. He's almost like a false number 9. He just literally. Like, he's almost like a striker, man. Like genuinely, he's almost like a striker.
He's perfect. He's better than Ramos up top.
Bro, he's perfect playing behind the striker, because if you remember his 2 goals versus Sevilla and why he worked very well with Martial, because Martial likes to drop and get the ball, he's intelligent enough to see that drop from the striker where he makes the run in behind, and the 2 goals were exactly identical. It looked like a replay because the striker was going down, dragging the defender, and he was running back. He showed some of his qualities because that's definitely his strength, but is it what we're looking for right now? And I would probably say no.
Because next season for me, Eriksen should be the backup to Bruno in the
I agree.
for the final
You think so? See, I think no. I think we need a backup to Bruno, as in like a proper backup, like that's maybe younger upcoming, like someone I don't know. Mason Mount is not number 10 though, so I wouldn't say Mason Mount.
I mean, he would play number 10.
That's why he would play, to be honest. No, but then when I say backup, whether he's first choice backup or not, but if what we do with Ahmad, because Ahmad, yes, he's been playing on the
right. There you go. Ahmad might be that person.
Yeah, Ahmad's a creative midfielder.
Ahmad's a good example.
When you actually look at it. So what I'm saying is, Eriksen for me doesn't play central midfield anymore, whether it's starting or off the bench, because we need to go and get 2 central midfielders this season. One of them who can potentially deputize for Casemiro, and one who can definitely play next to him. Both of them should be able to play next to him, but one needs to be able to deputize him as well. Now, ownership, and especially how everything's at the moment, is the biggest issue, right? Because Ten Hag has spoken about on numerous occasions up until like a few days ago. I need players. I need better players next season.
Yeah.
Our players have spoken about it. Luke Shaw himself has said we need better players. The players are speaking about it might be at risk themselves of not starting, but they know that the squad, whether it be themselves or their teammates, are not good enough to compete. We need the players. Ten Hag knows it. What owners are we going to get? I think if we get the right owners, without going into that discussion now, 5 players should not be out of the equation. I think last summer we signed Casemiro, Anthony, Lisandro, Malacia, and Eriksen. We signed 5 players with no money and rushing at the end of the transfer window. 5 players should not be out of agreement.
Out of question. Ryan here says here, United fans last few days talking about top 4 after winning 1 Carabao Cup in 6 seasons. Embarrassing. Enjoy Mason Mount.
Ryan.
I know Ryan.
Why are you crying?
Listen, Salah had his message in his drafts for about 3 months.
Exactly. Tell him.
Go chat to your fan base, innit? Because you lot are doing the crying, man.
I'm telling you. Zoa Tech TV says, I'm happy with the team top 3 cup and a cup final, but our football is awful. We play like Stoke City football. Our players are GG enough to have more possession. It's what I'm saying. It comes down to aesthetics and whether it is sustainable to do it maybe for another season. I don't know. Like there is proof that it has been successful with Mourinho and other managers out there and just playing that pragmatic way. Ancelotti's not the best football. He's winning countless Champions Leagues, you know? So it can be, you know, I mean, you can win trophies like that, but you have to have the quality. And if you don't have the quality, you're then going to see these little thrashings here and there where we don't have the ball to kind of, you know, build from the back, build the attack, build the football team. If you don't have that, you don't have the key kind of ingredients to kind of make it possible, then it's not like I'm seeing Lewis Hall, even though they're shit Chelsea, still playing out from the back comfortably and having that kind of momentum. Like, we need to be at that level, but then also have the quality. So it's a catch-22, man. It's just what the fan base want and what you're willing to be patient under. You know what I mean?
I think if we get the right summer, let's say we get 5 players. I'm not going to go into all the positions. I don't think we're as far off as everyone thinks. Again, it doesn't mean we are Man City and we're good enough to challenge on all fronts and all that kind of stuff. But Liverpool were 25 points behind Man City the season they finished on 97, 1 point behind them. Arsenal bottled 5th place last season and we're in a genuine title race this season. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to push Man City to the last.
You're not saying we're going to do this?
I'm not saying we're going to push Man City to the last day of the season.
He's saying it's doable.
Or hopefully
with
not,
the right
or hopefully not bottle a league next season. But the Premier League, I don't think you're ever as bad as you really think, and you're probably not as good as you really think either. When a few sides, we're talking. Listen, we are talking 4 wins. We're talking 4 competent away performances away from saying, all right, we finished on 85 points. Man City were better than us this season. I don't think it's that bad.
We have 9 losses this year. With the right improvements in the summer, you easily get rid of 3 of them. 3-4 of them. Let's say 3-4 defeats less. You're talking about being in the higher 80 points. But what's
that down to, though? But you have to analyze the context behind it, though. You can't just say...
Saeed, no, I get what you're saying, but this Neeks made a very good point in the beginning where he was mentioning that we have a very versatile style of play where possession base, people think of possession base, it's just like when you think of possession base, you think of City. And it doesn't necessarily have to do that. And what Ten Hag actually proved to us this year, and this is one of the positives that I'm looking at, that he can play multiple styles. And this is something that not most managers can do, because when you look at Klopp was so stubborn this season. He changed his style late in the season, and then they went on that run. But he didn't identify that early. You have a manager that has been able to get these results no matter what style of play he's playing. We've had our moments where we're like, okay, this is Ten Hag ball. And then we had our moments where we're like, we won, but this kind of looks like days of Oli. If anything, it should fill you with confidence that when it doesn't work well, this manager has enough in his bag and a versatile style of players where he can play both ways. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to keep 60 to 70% possession of the ball. You don't really need to do that. In Sir Alex days, we kept possession of the ball, but we didn't look easy on the eye like Pep's team does. And there was moments that we would win games on the counter, and there was moments where we would just demolish a team from start to finish. And this is what I think Ten Hag is going to do. Yes, he's going to persist with his style. He's going to try to keep high possession. He's going to try to keep a structure away from the ball, pressing high up the ball. I was looking at our stats at winning the ball in the final third. We're 7th this year. And obviously the teams that are ahead of us are the likes of City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Brighton, and Newcastle. So this is not a bad bunch to be behind, because we can already see that we're not playing as good as them. But that just shows me that that's to the trajectory we're moving towards. So having a manager who came in his first year and still was able to get results and playing different styles of play, that should fill you with confidence, because he's not going to be the next Pep. Maybe people need to relax and be like, oh, but we need to play like City, whatever. Pep is only Pep. There's no Pep like. Even Arsenal proved they can't play a different style of play. If they were, they would have been able to manage some wins when they bottled the league. I trust my manager, if he gets us ever in that position, that he's not going to bottle, because he's going to identify when do I play possession and when do I concede the ball. And good managers do that. So people just need to relax and take that as a positive. Don't say that, oh, he couldn't enforce his style of play. It means he's shit. No, be like, he couldn't enforce his style of play. However, he took us to 2 cup finals. He got results against Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Barcelona. We had very big results this year playing in different ways. And these are positives to look at.
Top 6 at home this season.
Yeah.
Actually.
No. There's a lot to admire about Ten Hag in terms of, what he's done with the squad that he's currently got. And people will say, oh, he spent 200 million. He's still got good players in there. But listen, man, these are players that I think, for me, they clash in a lot of styles. You've got the possession-based players, you've got transition-based players. He's had to mold them together, and I think he's done that well this season. To get possibly third this season and to win 2 trophies, I think for me it's exceptional. And I think you've got to give him that credit, man. And like I said, it's just the next step now. For me, I'm ambitious in life. I don't want to be content. I don't want to be content and be like, right, but he did this last season and, give him the benefit of that. No, next season, I want to move higher. I want to move better style of football. I want to see improvements. This season, I think for me, he deserves all the credit he does. And I don't think any of my United fans should be really slagging him off, if I'm being honest with you. But next season, now and let's, because I want to catch Man City, man. There's no point saying here, well, we'll just, we'll say hi to Man City. No, let's try and bridge the gap.
100%.
Let's bridge the gap, man. We can't just be like, let's bridge the gap. We've got to bridge the gap, man.
I just want our fans to be patient, Saeed, because we listen to rivals a lot, and sometimes we panic, and people don't sometimes understand that what he's done this year is a lot better than most of us expected. Our style of play, no matter if you like it or not, when you compare it to Klopp's first year with Liverpool, Klopp was persistent with the way he wants to play, yes, and eventually he got this team to play the way he wanted to play in 3 years, and they start winning stuff. But in his first year, he finished 8th. People forget that. And if we had Ten Hag persisting doing that, yes, maybe in next season we would have our players, yes, adapted more to how he wanted to play. But would you want to finish 8th this year off the season that we just had last year? Because I tell you this, if Ten Hag got us playing Ten Hag ball and winning some games very pretty, but then we lost way more than we did this year, and we finished outside the top 4 with no trophies, and we're not making Champions League, I know these same people that are complaining about our style of play right now would be the same people saying Ten Hag out. So sometimes you got to pick and choose your poison, because this poison that we had this season is not pretty bad. I'll take 2 trophies, potentially, two trophies, and a top 4 finish, and still hope that next year we're going to implement our style a little bit more, than to have a manager who, yes, would have persisted with the style like Klopp did, but we would have finished 8th, and we would have been like, 7th last year and 8th this year? Not a lot of people would have survived that side, let's be honest.
Yeah. Last question before we kind of wrap up on what I want to go around and kind of ask Sani first. How big is this ownership now? We get it sorted before, listen, the season's finishing tomorrow, but, before, let's say, just before pre-season at least, because I'm trying to be realistic, because I don't see owners coming in before pre-season and getting approved by the Premier League and whatnot. But how key is it for you, Sani?
Humongous. I think the future of, especially the next decade or so is massive, because at the end of the day, we need to focus on ourselves. Fine. If we don't get the right owners in, then we're going to be set back another decade. And in that decade, listen, whether we like to admit it or not, Manchester City are going to be winning, or like Pep's not going anywhere. Their owners aren't going to go anywhere. These other clubs around us, the Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, people are going to give Arsenal a lot of money, but they're going to win a league sooner rather than later. Surely, we'll see what happens. But it's huge. Yeah. Everything depends on this summer, I think, because Ten Hag as well, he needs the right players, but a lot of it comes down to the owner. It's massive. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Osman, what are you saying, man? It's crucial, man. We hear something, man. The next, I say, couple of weeks, isn't it? At least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit worried, to be honest. I put a tweet out the other day. I just feel like it just stinks of the Glazers just taking the piss, to be honest. I mean, I don't want to be that person. I'm normally quite positive, but I genuinely want to be surprised if our next season's a write-off. Like, I'm not even happy, and I genuinely think they're going to take that long, that we're not going to really be able to provide sufficient amount of quality for Ten Hag. I mean, if you look at if you look at the January transfer window, Sabitzer, to be fair, I was happy with his addition, but Weghorst, I mean, the guy's not even scored a goal in the league. Like, I'm not saying we're going to get that kind of caliber of players, but there's a real worry that we could be in a situation that we're scrambling for players late into August. And obviously we know Man United tax, already adds another 10 million, let alone when everyone and their dog knows that we're desperate for players in the back end of the transfer window. So I'm extremely worried. I mean, for me, I think it's dragged on for way too long. It definitely should have been done quite a while ago. At the end of the day, if it isn't done sooner rather than later, I think the next season could be a write-off, genuinely. I think it's that important. So yeah, obviously to add to what Sandy's saying, I think we need to get it done ASAP, and it'll be intriguing to see what the direction of the club is after the new ownership. But look, at the end of the day, on the positives, flip side, the Glazers got a trophy, got top 4. I mean, it's almost dreamland, the situation. This time 12 months ago, we would have absolutely snatched everyone's hand off for that scenario. So, we got to look at the positives, regardless of, whether they come in time or not. I think most fans would have probably sacrificed one window if it meant the Glazers leave. So, it just depends on how you look on it. Either way, man, hopefully Ten Hag can at least get something over the line.
You echo them thoughts, Neeks. You echo the thoughts.
Yeah, I just think I'm also with you that the next couple of weeks is so crucial. If we don't hear like a deal's been accepted by, I think the transfer window for English clubs opens the 14th of June.
Yeah.
If we don't hear that a bidder has been accepted by the 14th of June, I'm worried, because then the international transfer window opens the 1st of July. We are going to be so far behind in getting the deals done, whether it be sales, whether it be purchases, and that's just no way to go into a pre-season and then ultimately a season. So next couple of weeks is crucial.
Staffy, lastly, are you worried? Are you optimistic about the transfer window?
I have to be a little bit worried, Said, because like as everyone said perfectly, it's just like it's dragging on, it's taking too long, and the longer it takes, the worse, man, because like we should be identifying and negotiating for our targets right now, and we still don't know who's going to own us, so like the Glazers, honestly, like they're the worst people, honestly, that like existed in football. Like I can't think of anyone who couldn't care less about his club than them. So those 2 weeks are gonna be like, I'm gonna be nervous, man. I'm gonna try to talk to my Qatari cousins. I'm gonna try to tell them, listen, just throw in some money, get rid of the Glazers, and if we do this, bro, listen, I have a plan to go to the Glazers HQ, and I'm gonna do a Khabib versus Conor McGregor, and I'm gonna say, Alhamdulillah, I know you guys don't like this, and I'm gonna go to the headquarters with that Qatari flag and say this, because we need these guys out ASAP, bro. But inshallah,
absolutely.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Inshallah, man. Last super chat for wrap up. Big up Saeed TV, man. I appreciate the donations. And this season I was Newcastle out of possession. This season I was Newcastle out of possession, us 60% to 40% with Longstaff, Gomes, Joe Linton versus Bruno, Ericsson, Casemiro. No way Eddie has more tactics than Ten Hag. No, it's more excuses. He is not enough, not good enough.
Basically saying that, look, he can do
Eddie Howe also
players. Listen, it comes back to the point that I said we've got literally 2 days on the training page. They've got 5 days, bro.
And Eddie Howe spent more time with these players, bro. He's been there longer. He's had them for a longer time, and Eddie Howe was no scrub. Like he just proved that he's
things change after one more season. Expectations change after one more season. But listen, people, we're going to wrap it up here. Big up to everybody who's locked in. There's over 700 of us in here, and we've only hit 250 likes. I think that's a bit poor, man. But you have the chance to redeem yourself right now. Like the Glazers don't, but you lot do. So please like the video.
Like up the video, people, then, man. Like up the video.
Yeah,
man.
Like up the video.
It's free, man. Support the boy.
Free. Absolutely, man. Big up to Staffy, man. Thanks for coming on, man, as always, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me, as always.
Absolutely. Big up Neeks as well, man. Love for coming on, man.
Big up, Saeed, once again.
Big up to Osman as well. Love for coming on as well, man.
Pleasure, bro. Pleasure, man.
Absolutely. And Sunny, big up to you, man. Your Wi-Fi is not doing well today, but big up as always.
Wi-Fi
big
up.
Up to you, man. Yeah, man. People, we're back tomorrow. I'll see you at the game. Osman, you'll be there. Sunny, I'm guessing you'll be there as well. So I'll see you there. Neek, Stuffy, as it's time. We'll see you again soon, man. Take care. Bye-bye. Peace.